Hello, passionate Manchester City supporter. Prepare your heart because the news circulating at the Etihad promises to shake up this summer. After a season that fell short of expectations, especially considering the extremely high standards set by Pep Guardiola's team in recent years, the feeling is that a deep transformation is about to take place. And this change starts with key names, perhaps the most symbolic of them all, Kevin De Bruyne. Yes, you heard that right. The Belgian, the brain of the midfield, the man of improbable decisions and pinpoint passes, is close to saying goodbye. It's been almost 10 years leading City's orchestra, winning titles and capturing hearts. Now, it seems that he might be on his way to Major League Soccer, with Chicago Fire mentioned as a possible destination. If this comes to fruition, De Bruyne will end his Premier League journey as a true icon. There have been brilliant seasons, unforgettable plays, and a commitment that few have been able to match. And like any legend, he's not leaving through the back door. His departure marks the end of an era, but also the start of a new phase for the citizens. Another major figure who might be on his way out of the club is Ederson, the Brazilian goalkeeper who joined Manchester City from Benfica in 2017, has redefined what is expected from a goalkeeper in modern football. Visionary in his passing, cool under pressure, and exceptional in ball distribution. His contribution goes far beyond just saves. He has been a key piece in Guardiola's style of play. Speculation about his departure grew after reports suggested his family was preparing to leave Manchester at the end of the season. And if personal life weighs in, the backstage rumors are also heating up. Saudi Arabia has reappeared as a possible destination, with local clubs ready to open the coffers, though, as we know, they tend to offer astronomical salaries, but don't always agree to pay the high transfer fees demanded by European clubs. Last summer, Al Nassr showed interest, but backed off after hearing the asking price, $50 million. Now the situation has changed. Ederson is said to be more open to the idea of seeking a new challenge, and the possibility of a transfer is no longer off the table. However, according to journalist Sam Lee from The Athletic, Ederson would still prefer to continue playing in European football, but he hasn't ruled out a move to the Middle East entirely. And there is even a strong name being pointed out as a potential replacement, Diogo Costa from FC Porto. The Portuguese goalkeeper, known for his skill with his feet and great security between the posts, would be appealing to Guardiola. Jorge Mendes, who manages the player's career, is said to be trying to facilitate the transfer for a fee close to $34 million, below his release clause. Nothing has been signed yet, but talks are ongoing. The question for the blue supporter is Diogo Costa ready to wear such a heavy shirt as Ederson's? Is it time to trust new blood? Or should the club look for someone more experienced? While Ederson and De Bruyne's potential departures stir the hearts of the fans, other moves are also gaining traction behind the scenes. One name frequently mentioned in recent weeks is Florian Wirtz, the young prodigy from Bayer Leverkusen. Talented, versatile, creative, everything Guardiola loves. And to strengthen the interest, the two are said to have had a direct conversation. Normally, when Pep calls, the player answers and agrees. The Spanish manager's influence is strong in the market, and his development skills attract even the most skeptical. Just remember what he's done with players like Leroy Sané, Gabriel Jesus, Rodri, and more recently, Phil Foden. Guardiola is a magnet for talent. However, this time, the path might be more thorny. That's because Wirtz's father, who also acts as his agent, is convinced that the best move for his son would be to sign with Bayern Munich. According to journalist Christian Falk from CF Bayern Insider, although the conversation with Guardiola went excellently, family influence weighs heavily. Bayern believe they are in the lead for the German midfielder's signature. Real Madrid is also watching the situation, but the main battle seems to be between City and Bayern. The transfer fee? Around $100 million. But City might have a card up their sleeve. Leverkusen is said to be interested in two players from the blue squad, goalkeeper Stefan Ortega and young midfielder James McAtee. There have already been meetings to discuss including these names in a potential swap deal. This could facilitate the business, or at least balance the odds against the German club's favor. So the question for the fans remains, Would it be worth letting go of McAtee or Ortega to secure Wirtz's signature, or would it be better to hold on to our talents and seek other options? And while Wirtz is being fought over, other players from the current squad have also come onto the radar of Saudi clubs. One of them is Jack Grealish. The English forward, who arrived at the club with high expectations, has struggled to establish himself as a regular starter. Competition has increased with the rise of Jeremy Doku, Matheus Nunes, and the arrival of Omar Marmoush in January. And with Oscar Bob returning from injury, the fight for a place is more intense than ever. Grealish, now 29, still has market value, and the interest from the Saudi Pro League reignites the discussion about his future. The Saudis are building a new offensive recruitment push and have included Grealish in their list. According to sources from Sky Sports, he is listed alongside names like Bruno Fernandes and Victor Osimhen in this next big window. If the Saudis offer a significant amount, Manchester City could consider selling. It's important to highlight that the club is not considering a loan deal. If a move happens, it will be a permanent transfer. Recently, City has done business with the Saudis. Riyad Mahrez and Aymeric Laporte followed this path. In English football, few clubs have the funds to secure Grealish's transfer. Therefore, realistically, the Saudis might be the only ones willing to invest heavily. And for a player who wants regular playing time, maybe it's time to start afresh elsewhere. But should City really part ways with Grealish? Or can he still offer a lot to Guardiola's team? This is yet another decision that will shake up the Blue Summer. And what about Phil Foden? The boy from Stockport, who enchanted the world last season, seems to be going through a more discreet phase. In 2023-24, he was the team's star. Goals, assists, decisive plays. He was the shining light. But now, in the 2024-25 season, his performance has dropped. It's not uncommon for players to experience this after reaching the top. Mahrez and Eden Hazard, for example, also went through this cycle. Peak, recognition, then a sharp decline. The good news is that Guardiola trusts Foden and believes he still has a lot to give, but the club isn't standing still. To take the weight off Foden's shoulders and prepare the team for the post-De Bruyne era, the name of Morgan Gibbs-White has come up. The Nottingham Forest midfielder is a well-known figure in the English youth setup and a partner of Foden in the Under-17 World Cup. The two have great chemistry, are friends, and understand each other both on and off the field. Gibbs-White wouldn't come to take Foden's spot, but rather to complement him. His combative and dynamic style could free up Foden to play more freely, further up the pitch. The asking price? Around $100 million. A significant investment, but one that could bring technical and emotional rewards to the team. Now, with a renewed focus on market movements, Manchester City seems to be preparing for a summer of profound changes, and more names are being linked to the club. After rumors about the possible departure of some of the biggest names of the current generation, such as De Bruyne and Ederson, attention is also turning to the future of the squad. And while renowned names are being speculated to leave, the club is also keeping an eye on the market, not only to cover potential gaps, but also to strengthen itself and ensure that the team remains a powerhouse in world football. With Foden's situation and the possible departures of players like Grealish, the need for renewal seems increasingly urgent. And of course, Pep Guardiola's influence, which has already been crucial for the arrivals of players like Rodri and Phil Foden, may be key in convincing young talents to choose Manchester City over other European football giants. But, as we saw in the case of Wirtz, the competition won't be easy. The rivalry with Bayern Munich, especially in the transfer market, is something City knows how to handle very well. However, the real issue here is not just the arrival of new players, but also how the team will deal with internal changes. The club has shown a clear commitment to renewal and the continuity of a successful project, but the pressure to maintain competitiveness does not decrease. The departure of De Bruyne, for example, represents a massive void, both in terms of technical quality and leadership on the field. The Belgian has always been the engine of midfield, and his absence will be felt in more than one aspect. Guardiola is certainly aware that the reconstruction needs to be handled carefully to avoid losing the momentum that has kept City at the top for so long. The arrival of new names, such as Wirtz or even Gibbs-White, could be the solution to fill this gap. Both have the talent and energy needed to shine in a system like Guardiola's, where possession and creativity are essential. However, the question remains, would this be the right time for City to invest heavily in young players and risk a rebuild, or should the club focus on more experienced reinforcements capable of maintaining the level of excellence? It is clear that, in the current context, any market movement must be strategic. City has a solid foundation, but changes are needed to maintain competitiveness on the global stage. If the goal is to continue being dominant in the Premier League and win more European titles, Guardiola's leadership, combined with shrewd reinforcements, will be crucial. After all, modern football demands much more than just technical quality. It also requires adaptation and long-term vision, qualities that City has demonstrated over the years. Meanwhile, another name we cannot overlook is Ederson, who, if he does indeed leave the club, will be hard to replace. The Brazilian goalkeeper, with his calmness and ball skills, has been essential in implementing Guardiola's style of play. His ability to act as a sweeper keeper and his impact on transition plays are unmatched. Even with FC Porto's potential interest in Diogo Costa, the question will be whether the new goalkeeper will be able to adapt quickly to the dynamic and demanding playing style Guardiola imposes. But like every great club, Manchester City also knows it needs to be ready for new opportunities. The transfer market is never predictable, and with the potential for significant departures, it is possible that new options will arise, whether through swaps or external offers. In this scenario, adaptation will be key. City needs to ensure that any new arrival to the team can integrate quickly and contribute to maintaining the competitiveness of the squad. The future of names like Foden, Grealish, and De Bruyne seems increasingly uncertain, but options for reinforcement continue to be abundant. The truth is that, unlike many other clubs, Manchester City cannot afford to relax. The need to remain at the top of the Premier League and the Champions League demands that market movements be precise and assertive. Guardiola has already proven himself a master at turning good players into stars, and the expectation is that he will continue this journey of success, leading the club through more victorious seasons. The concern for Foden's future cannot be overlooked either. The young Englishman, who brilliantly made his way into the first team, has gone through an impressive period of growth, but his current form raises questions about his consistency and whether he will be able to sustain the level needed to be a key player for City. The dip in Foden's performance at the start of this season is not something to ignore, especially when he was considered one of the pillars of the team last season. If City invests in a player like Gibbs-White, it will be interesting to see how the midfield dynamic changes. With the arrival of new reinforcements and the potential departures of key figures, Manchester City is clearly at a crossroads. There is no doubt that the team is one of the strongest in Europe, but it is equally important for the club to continue reinventing itself to remain relevant. Guardiola has always been a master of handling transitions, but the current moment demands not only adaptation, but also a clear long-term vision. For the fans, the anxiety is palpable. Everyone is waiting to see which names will enter the Etihad and what this renewal will mean for the team's future. Being part of the elite of world football requires difficult decisions, and City is well aware of this. The upcoming season promises to be a real test, but also an opportunity to reaffirm the dominance the club has exercised in both English and European football. The summer transfer window promises to be decisive. With each movement, the club gets closer to a possible total squad overhaul, with the departure of some figures and the arrival of new talents ready to prove their worth. But amid these changes, one thing is certain: Manchester City will continue its pursuit of excellence, guided by Guardiola's unique vision. Now, as the weeks go by, the rumors surrounding player movements are gaining even more strength. The summer transfer window is always a period of speculation, but for Manchester City, this year seems even more crucial. The need for adjustments to the squad after a season slightly below expectations puts the club's board in a delicate position. The challenge will be to balance renewal with maintaining competitiveness. Guardiola, who has always been a key figure in this process, will have to be very astute when handling the changes to the squad. Among the most intense rumors, Kevin De Bruyne's future stands out. His name has been linked with a potential move to Saudi Arabia or even Major League Soccer, specifically to Chicago Fire. However, the truth is that a move to U.S. football seems unlikely, given the impact and status De Bruyne has in the Premier League. His departure would leave a massive gap in City's midfield. De Bruyne is not just an excellent passer, he is also a leader on the pitch with a vision of the game that few can replicate. For a team already featuring some players in decline like Foden, losing De Bruyne could be a considerable blow to the team's dynamics. Whatever De Bruyne's destination, the reality is that Manchester City will have to adapt without him. Guardiola has always been a master at reshaping his team, coming up with new solutions to the problems that arise. But the absence of a player of De Bruyne's caliber will require more from the manager than in any recent situation. The midfield will be an area that demands greater creativity, and if the Belgian does indeed leave, players like Rodri and Bernardo Silva will need to take on even more central roles in the team's tactics. And the issue of potential departures doesn't stop there. Ederson's case is another point of uncertainty. The Brazilian goalkeeper has been one of the pillars of Guardiola's team since his arrival, but now rumors of a potential move to Saudi Arabia are circulating strongly. If this materializes, City will have to find a world-class replacement to fill Ederson's spot, and once again, the name of Diogo Costa from FC Porto emerges as a viable solution. Costa has already demonstrated his qualities with his feet and under pressure, something Guardiola looks for in his goalkeepers. The transition might be difficult, but the club seems to be preparing for any eventuality, given that renewal also involves changes in the most sensitive position on the pitch. With a focus on the transfer market, Manchester City is also paying close attention to the movements of their competitors. The rivalry with Bayern Munich and other European powerhouses could complicate matters for the club. In the case of Florian Wirtz, the Bayer Leverkusen talent, City faces strong competition. While Guardiola has made a positive approach to the player, Wirtz's father and agent are pushing for a move to Bayern. The competition for Wirtz highlights how transfers between European giants can turn into a real behind-the-scenes war. And still, City is not an easy club to beat when it comes to negotiations, especially when Guardiola's name is involved. Bayern Munich may be a formidable competitor, but Manchester City has resources and a structure that few clubs can rival. Moreover, the Guardiola factor could be the deciding element. The Catalan manager has a unique ability to attract young talents and develop them brilliantly. This could be exactly what Wirtz needs to take his career to the next level, especially considering that De Bruyne's position still requires a replacement. Additionally, the interest in Gibbs White should not be underestimated. The young midfielder from Nottingham Forest has impressed in the Premier League, and his addition to City could create an interesting dynamic in midfield. Foden and Gibbs White share a good friendship, which could help both adapt to Guardiola's system. Most importantly, Gibbs White wouldn't be tasked with directly replacing Foden, but rather adding more creativity to the squad. His energy and technical skills could complement the game intelligence of players like Rodri and Bernardo Silva, giving City even greater flexibility on the pitch. Thus, we can see how Manchester City is preparing for an even brighter future, but one that will require significant adaptation as big stars leave and new players join. There's no denying that the pressure to maintain success will be high, and it is within this context that the club will have to make strategic choices about who should leave and who should arrive. Returning to player movements, Jack Grealish's future is also under discussion. The English player has had highs and lows during his time at City, but a possible move to Saudi clubs is on the rise. If this happens, Manchester City should not hesitate to sell, especially if the offer is financially advantageous. The arrival of new signings and the constant fight for positions could mean that Grealish may not have such a central role as initially expected. Ultimately, what Manchester City is looking for is to ensure that the team remains competitive and that new additions bring quality and consistency. The challenge will be balancing the departures of key players with the arrival of players who can maintain the level of excellence Guardiola expects. If the club manages to do this effectively, the next season could be as successful as the previous ones. But for that to happen, changes are necessary, and the transfer summer promises to be a busy period at the Etihad. And for you, Manchester City fan, what should the club's approach be this summer? Should they move forward with the departure of some key players, or would it be better to try and keep the current squad, making only specific adjustments? Comment below and share your thoughts on this future. And with that, we come to the end of the latest updates on Manchester City and the movements that could shape the club's future. As you can see, the summer promises to be a period of big decisions, and Guardiola's team is preparing for a future full of challenges and, who knows, new triumphs. If you like this content and want to stay updated on everything happening in the world of the citizens, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to not miss any updates. It's going to be a busy summer, and we'll certainly be keeping a close eye on all of this. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.